Continuing on from the last video, let's add some content onto our page. So I'm going to actually cheat a little bit, and I'm going to open up the Black Goose Word document that we had from the previous exercise. And I'm just going to copy everything here and go over to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to paste it in to the design view. So here it is in design view, and I also see it over here in code view. So the code view should look familiar from what we did in the last practice. And if I want to see how this would actually look on a web page, if anything would be different, I can switch it to live view, and that's going to show me the way it's going to look on a web page. Switch it back to design view. So let's start looking over here in the code view to see what happened. First of all, Dreamweaver brought it in with some of that markup that actually I created in the Word document. It added that. So if you have a lot of text, it's perfectly acceptable to type it up into Microsoft Word and then copy and paste it over, and you're going to get some of that markup there. But we're probably going to want to customize it. So what's up here at the top where it says doc type HTML, that tells the browser that it's using HTML5. Then notice, just as we talked about before, there's an opening HTML tag, and all the way here at the bottom is the closing HTML tag. So in terms of your troubleshooting, if you ever, once you start working over here in the code, make sure that everything stays within that bottom, the closing HTML tag. Next we have the opening head tag, and we don't have any CSS yet, so we don't see any CSS up here. The next thing I want to point out actually is the title tag. So the title is what's going to show up in the browser. I'm going to preview this in Firefox, and it's going to always ask me if I want to save it, and I say yes. And so if I'm over here and I'm previewing this in the browser, what you can see is that in the browser this says untitled document. So that's not very nice. That's definitely something I want to change. So over here I'm going to do it right in the code view. We'll call it Bistro Home, and I can have a space. That's fine. That probably should be capitalized. Oopsie, sorry. Clicked on the wrong spot. And I just clicked over into my design view because I wanted to show how this updated down here. This is the properties inspector, and it's a contextual toolbar, meaning it's going to change kind of based on what I'm selected on in my design view. So if I had an image here and I clicked on the image, I would see some different fields here. But one thing you'll notice, and this is new to this very latest version, but it might be different by the time you see this video, is the document title field down here. So what I just put into the code view showed up here, my document title. If you're working on the last version from 2014, the document title field has always been up here at the top of the document. So that's a new, different change, a new change as well. Okay, and then we have the closing head tag. So the next tag we see is the body tag, the opening body tag and the closing body tag, and that's where we see all the content, so the actual material that we see on our web page shows up here. And we can see that basically Dreamweaver just marked it up as a bunch of paragraphs and line breaks, all that added. So I could quickly go in and change that a little bit more the way that we had it set up after our practice. We had used some heading 1s and heading 3s. I'll keep that line right there though. And notice what just happened is I started to put in my closing heading 3 tag, and Dreamweaver finished that for me. So I'll do it again. Let's switch it over here. I changed that to an H3, and I'm going to click right after. I'll keep my line break, and I just start to type in the first bracket and a closing sign, and then Dreamweaver added the H3 for me because it assumed I wanted to close whatever was the closest tag that had started. Okay, I don't see the changes over here until I click into the design view, and as soon as I click into the design view, now I see those changes happening. Okay, so, and then that's pretty much everything else that's here is what we had covered. We could go and add that horizontal rule after the H1. That was something else that we had. Oh, and so you may notice the code helpers, and those are really useful because sometimes you can't remember exactly what something's called, so you start typing it in, and you'll notice that I get this list of all the things that start with an H here. So I could just double-click horizontal rule, and it's going to put that in for me. and I click over here into the design view, and now it's taken place. So that is, you know, I would like you to, of course, practice with just typing in directly into Dreamweaver, and we'll do that in the next practice. But if you want, just for this practice, just copy and paste that in, and then go and mark up that text a little bit. But now the next stuff we're going to do is creating multiple pages and linking them. So I want to do that again from my Files panel. I'm going to right-click. I can right-click on Site, or I can right-click on Bistro, and again, I'm going to choose New File. And I'm going to call this one Catering. And I'm going to just, oops, I misspelled that. My typing is pretty bad. And I'm going to leave the .html. That's pretty important that stays there, or else it won't work. And I'm going to click outside of it. And now this time, I'll use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-N. It does the same thing. I just created a new file. So that on a PC is Control-Shift-N. And I'm going to call this one Location. This will actually be my location hours, but I'll just put locations. So what I want to do is I want each one of these pages to have the Black Goose Restaurant and this horizontal rule on the top. So I can do it in two ways. Either I could copy it directly into the design view and paste it in, or I could copy directly the code. Let's try it. We'll try it both ways. So I'm going to copy Black Goose Restaurant and the horizontal rule. I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to open up Catering, and I'll paste it. And so that's there, and I can see in the code view it pasted it as an H1, and I pasted the horizontal rule. So let's go to Location and do the same thing. I'm going to paste that in. So what we want from this practice is to create 3 pages that have a certain amount of consistency between them. Go back to my Bistro, and what I want to be on my catering page is actually the information for catering. So I'm going to cut this out. I'll do Control X, and now that I've opened up all of my files from the Files panel, I can notice that up here actually they've opened up as tabs. So that's how I can also switch back and forth. And I'm going to paste this in, and I accidentally erased my horizontal rule, so I'm going to undo that again. Now here's it's a little tricky. If I'm here, if I'm just kind of click into the design view, you'll notice that the horizontal rule is highlighted, meaning once I paste, I'm actually going to delete that. So I want to make sure I've clicked outside of that horizontal rule, and I can see that now my cursor is after that horizontal rule. And I'm going to paste that in there. And now we can see how that came into the code view correctly. So let's do the same thing with locations, except for this time let's copy and paste the code. So I'm going to go into my code view, and I need to look for where it says location and hours. And I'm going to take all of that, including my closing paragraph tag. So if I'm taking my opening paragraph tag, I need to take the closing one. So I'm going to take everything here. I'm going to copy that. Actually, I'm going to cut it. Click over to Design View, and I see that that's now gone. I'll go to my tab for location, and staying in the code view, I'm going to paste it in. Oh, and somehow I ended up getting, I have this extra paragraph here, which I don't want. I don't want that there, and I'm just going to now paste it in. And now I see the location and hours showing up here. When I look up at my tabs, each one of these tabs has an asterisk, which means that they have unsaved changes. So let's just pretend for a second on my Bistro home I had links to catering and location, and I linked those navigational links to those actual pages, and I saved it, and I would go to preview, and I would click on catering, and it would probably show me an empty page. I click on locations, it would show me an empty page, because those pages haven't been saved yet, so they're still just blank. So I could just go and save them all, Control S, or I can go up to File and choose Save All. So that's kind of a nice little feature in Dreamweaver to take advantage of. All right, and if I just want to see how these look in the live view, I can just switch it over to live view, and that's how it would look in live view on the browser, and I'll switch it back. So now I have on Black Goose Restaurant, just a little paragraph about the restaurant, and on catering, a little paragraph about catering, and on location, we have location hours. And the only real design thing that we've done here is that we have consistency at the beginning, at the top of each page. So now let's have a navigation. And we can add that navigation. Traditionally, it would be up at the top. So I'm going to click after my horizontal rule, and I'm going to hit the Enter key to come down. And notice what happens in the code view. I have a new paragraph. And what does all of this mean? This means space. So you may have noticed you can't make multiple spaces. I'm trying to make multiple spaces with my spacebar, and it doesn't show you. It won't work. It's going to show up in the code here. I'm just moving over. It's white space, and this is actually covered in your reading, but it doesn't show up. It won't show up on the browser, and it won't move in the design view. So I don't really want that. I don't want that space there. What I do want to have is I want to have the navigation. So I can also type directly into my code view to get the text to show up in my design view, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in home, and then I want to get this kind of vertical line, and to do that I'm going to use on my keyboard two keys. I'm going to use the backslash and the shift. So the backslash is just below the backspace bar on the right hand side. So backslash and shift at the same time gives me that vertical bar. So I'm going to have home, and then I'm going to have catering, space, and then get that vertical line, and then I'll have location. Okay, and now when I click over to here into my design view, it's over here. So just to show you, you can work back and forth, and sometimes you're going to find that you have more control if you work directly in the code view, because for example, if I did this in the design view, it added that extra space, and I didn't want that. So just to keep in mind, this space that I see here, like between my opening paragraph and home, doesn't actually show up here. This kind of spacing that's in the code view can just be visual for your own sort of organization of the code. It's not going to actually show up here. All right, so same thing. I want to copy and paste this onto my other pages so they all have this exactly in the same location. And I'm going to just copy that directly from in the code, and then I'll go over to catering. And I want to make sure, I'm going to bring it down a line, and it doesn't mean that actually these things, I could have it exactly on the same line as the horizontal rule. The horizontal rule is going to bring a paragraph, as we saw from our first exercise, always brings things down to the next line. That's not going to make a difference. It's going to show up in the same spot. And location as well. And so just to show you, in this example here, I have horizontal rule and then my paragraph with catering, home, catering, location, all on the same line of the code, and it still visually is going to appear that they're coming down from each other. So remember, every time you have an opening paragraph, that's automatically going to bring the text that's within that those opening paragraph tags down a line. So even if it's on the same space in the code view. So in this one, they were on different spaces, but in this one, they're one right after another. Okay, so now let's do File, Save All. So our 3 pages have a nice amount of consistency. So one thing that I would like for you to get into the habit of is every page that I'm on, and so I go into catering, I want to be able to know immediately that I'm on catering. And there are 2 ways that we can do this. Either the actual link, the navigational link for catering, should look different when we're on that page, and or you could do one or the other or both. That page should have a title. So the first thing I want to see is catering, because it's very easy for me to forget, for anyone to forget when you're browsing through a web page, where are you? So this is a pretty good practice. Start off with, I have catering here. Location doesn't have it. I do have location in hours, but so in theory, I'd want to start this off also with, just like I had catering, I want there to be a heading here. So I can go ahead and add that in the design view. I can bring this down a line and add location. And now I'm going to show you another way, just using the Dreamweaver interface, to make this into a heading 3. I'm going to highlight it, and notice how as I highlight it, it's also being highlighted in the code view. And this time we're going to use the Properties Inspector. So where it says Format, currently it's formatted to be a paragraph. But I'm going to format it to be a heading 3. So I can use my Properties Inspector down here, and now in the code view it says H3. So you can do it either way. Sometimes when you're just typing text, so let's see, I'll just add some text here. So this is the filler text. it may not have any formatting. Mine, because I hit the paragraph, because I hit enter, actually brought it down and it did wrap it and format it as paragraph. But sometimes you may find that you just start typing and it's not formatted as any kind of text. We want all of our text to be formatted as a heading, as a paragraph, as a list item, as something. And you'll understand that a little bit more once we get into CSS. So I can just go and delete this now. That was just for sake of example. But if I did want to change this text in some way to format as something else, I could do it directly here in my code or through this format. But I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Okay, so our last step is, I'm going to save this, Control S, is I need to link up all of these pages. So my golden rule is I should be able to get everywhere from anywhere. And let's be methodical about it because it's so easy to forget one of these navigational links on one page. We have to link this navigation on all pages. So home actually is going to get linked to the page that we're on right now. And I know it seems like, why would I want to have a link to the page that I'm on? Well, for reasons of consistency. And also reasons that if I don't get that little hand that I assume I will get when I go over a link, it makes me feel like it's broken. So home is going to link to the page I'm on, which is Bistro. So we're going to talk, I have a whole other video about linking. For right now, I'm going to show you some pretty cool features in Dreamweaver that makes linking very easy, and then we'll look at how it's done in the code. I'm going to highlight the text that I want to become a link. I'm going to go down to my Properties Inspector where it says Link. I'm going to take the little icon that's called Point to File and click and drag it into my Files panel, and I'm going to let go once I hit Bistro Home. And in my link field, it's now linking to bistrohome.html. Let's repeat this for catering. Link field, point to file, and I'm going to drag it to catering.html, and now it's linking to the catering page. And one last one, repeat it for location. Now the reason I'm having you do this is because it's so easy for a link to break if you don't have the exact same capitalization, spelling, if you forget anything. So yes, of course, I could highlight this and type in location.html. And if you're absolutely convinced that you have a very good syntax that you're going to remember, such as you always capitalize or you don't capitalize, as you can see, my bistro is not capitalized, catering and location are capitalized. So I wasn't consistent in my syntax, which makes it very easy to make mistakes when you're typing things in. If I use the point to file, two things. One, I note that I'm getting the exact correct spelling. It's a good way to sort of troubleshoot and make sure that I am only linking to files that are in my root folder. Let's look over here in the code view. I'm just going to move my panel over a bit to see what happened once I created those links. So now, right in front of home, I have a new tag. So remember before it was just the paragraph tag? So now I have this new tag, the A space href, and it's just called ahref, equals, and within quotes, it's showing me the name of the file that it's linking to. And then I have my closing tag. Okay, so that's what the link is going to look like, and I have a whole other chapter. We're going to talk more about links. So now we need to do that for all pages. It's not enough because now I can get to catering, but once I'm over in catering, I can't get anywhere else. So once I'm going to highlight home, and now that I've loaded up all of those pages by point to file, if I click on the drop down, they're all here. So my home page is going to be Bistro Home, and now I'm going to highlight catering, and I'm going to go to catering.html, highlight location, and go to locations.html. One last page to do. Make sure you do it for each page. So one of the things that I see people when they're first starting out doing is the thought that, well, if I'm on locations, why do I need a link for locations? So they remove that from the navigation bar. And that's actually a really big mistake because people get confused when the navigation bar changes. So you always want it to be consistent. And yes, even though I'm on locations, I want locations to act like an active link. The trick so that people won't click on it is put the title there. So if I know clearly I'm on location, I'm not going to click on it. If there's no title there or something that repeats where I am, I'll click on it and then I'll wonder why it's not going anywhere. But that's better than trying to click on it and I don't get the hand. That's going to make me feel like it's broken. The analogy I always give with something like that is imagine that you go to the elevator and you can click on the button, but the button doesn't turn red, and you're just not sure if it's working. So we want to make people understand that things are working. We don't want them to feel like things are broken. I'm going to finish this up. Location, and this should go to location. Now, if you want to troubleshoot, as I was just, once you do things like 5 times, repetition, it's easy to make a mistake. I'm just going to click into catering, and I'm going to go down here, and yes, I did link it to the right page. Click anywhere into location and make sure that's all. I'm going to the right page. So now I'm going to go back to my home page, but I need to save everything. I'll do File, Save All. All my pages are saved, and I'm going to preview this in a browser, not just live view. I'll go to Firefox, and here I see, we're not even going to worry about our colors or anything yet, but let's just check that I can get everywhere from anywhere. So now I'm in catering, now I'm in location, and I can get back to home. So you just want to make sure that from every single page you can get anywhere, and if so, then I would say this is a successful first little website. We haven't done a whole lot, but at the same time we've actually learned a whole bunch of concepts and a whole bunch about this interface here. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop this video, and then we're going to continue on and start talking about CSS and the little things that we can do as an intro to designing these pages.